Welcome to MalcolmPresents.com and our show, Tush Twins. Except now we're missing one of the Tushies. Tushies?
Yeah, it's a Tushes.
One of the cheeks. I'm sorry to say that Maxine had to fly not emergency, but to New York. Her brother Phil has passed away, and Phil Margo. I did a show called The Lion Roars, which basically Phil is a founding member of the Tokens, which I did A Lion Sleeps Tonight. Except now we had a show we were involving with politics, and boy, did Phil roar. In fact,
I'll tell you some stories about that.
I had to stop him from roaring because he got a little too carried away, especially with some salty language. But he knew how to control himself. And suddenly, it was last week, actually, just the day before we were supposed to do a show, Max called me up and said he had she didn't say he had a stroke. He had blood on the brain. I don't know if that's a stroke.
They first thought it was a stroke.
Yeah.
It is a stroke. He had a brain bleed.
Brain bleed. Is that a stroke or brain bleed?
Yeah, well, it causes, what's an embolism, but it causes a stroke. So he went into surgery. They thought they got it. He was doing fine. Then he had a second brain bleed. They took him into OR again. He had a third one while he was in there, but they couldn't find it. And that was really, and he was basically, I think they said he was almost like his brain was flatlined, but his organs were fine.
Did he have, was he a donor?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was shocking to everybody because he hadn't been sick. I mean, he's not a kid, but he's been vibrant.
Phil is the most healthiest the whole family. I mean, he really was. I was shocked because 3 years ago, our Mitchie passed away too.
Yeah, and that was sudden or something, wasn't it? Also,
it was on Thanksgiving night. He never woke up.
And Thanksgiving is a week and a half away.
Yes, so I stopped celebrating Thanksgiving. I don't think Maxine's ever going to celebrate Thanksgiving.
I think Maxine is going to skip November because I think her mother passed in November, didn't it?
No, May.
No, May. Okay.
Yeah,
but she was like.
Yeah, but her father passed on her birthday, so she didn't celebrate her birthday for many years.
And her mother was like 101 years old. So
101. May she rest in happiness. She was my second mother. She was crazy.
It sounds like a wonderful family of to grow up to.
They were. Phil was like my third brother. I had a real brother, Ronnie, who I love dearly, but he was in the Navy when I was a kid, and Phil and Mitch were around a lot more than my brother was. My brother and Mitch were the same age. Phil and Mitch took me to my first Met game in 1962.
And that's when they first started. Yeah, they first came in the league.
And I never watched baseball or football because my father didn't believe in he only believed in sports that you could play in. So my father was a fencing master. So I grew up with a sword in my hand and loving fencing or karate or jiu-jitsu. My father's a black belt, so he enjoyed that stuff. But he never appreciated football or baseball. And Phil and Mitch introduced me to that wonderful sport. And to this day.
Yeah, I remember not to mess around with you. Do you still practice, or have you?
No, I haven't touched a sword since my dad died.
How about the martial arts?
I never. Maxine and I took karate up as kids. Yeah. We got the gi, we got all dressed up, we got the whole thing, and after 2 weeks of spending all that money on this stuff, we were bored and left.
I never took taekwondo or anything. I took Tai Chi Wan, which was the slow one.
Yeah, I know. I tried to do that too. I got bored. I get bored easily.
What you have to do is, I haven't did it in 20 years, but you have to have like a one-on-one instructor because classes are too large. And you inevitably make mistakes and not do the right form. because I tried a class after my instructor had left, and it was no good because I said, no, I know I'm doing this wrong, but they didn't correct me.
Well, I don't see, yeah, private lessons, private tutoring
Yeah.
up front is the best. I had did my singing lessons that way, but I'm into Zumba. That's my
Oh,
exercise.
Zumba. Yeah, and
Zumba. As
I
long as I can
understand.
dance
Yeah.
and move.
When I was reading Phil's obit, I understand he was into
Black
karate,
belt.
black
Mhm.
belt.
Phil was amazing. I remember Maxine and I were roadies for them as kids. We used to help them with their stuff and carry in equipment and music stands wherever
Yeah,
they
well,
would go.
this was the tokens. I don't know if we
The
had mentioned
tokens,
that. Yeah.
yes, the tokens. And matter of fact, Maxine and I did a children's album when we were 7 years old with the tokens
Ah,
called We're Folks Too. There were 6 of us. I know there was Mitch, this kid Mitch, who was adorable, and 2 older kids, and Maxine and I. There were 6 of us all together. And of course, Maxine and I had the lead parts.
of
Duh,
course.
duh. But we had a ball, and I remember Phil taking me and all the group to the automat after.
That was a good
Yes.
one for the kids because you got to see your food before you got it and put the coins in the slot.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was like fun and games.
Yeah, but they were crazy. Well, I would just remember when I was also at their house, when they would go on tour, they would leave money in different spots of the house. And if you found it, you got to keep it.
Ooh.
Yes, so there's always a $5 bill, a $10 bill. I found in the bread basket. It was like hysterical.
The house must have
Phil would
been a
always
mess.
spill it.
The house
It
must have been a
always,
mess.
it always was.
Because I don't know as a young girls if you put things back where you found them or you just sort of scattered things.
No, we kept opening things and boxes and
Mm.
stuff, and we found money all the
Yeah.
time. But that was their game. So if parents had extra money, and I would find it, and Maxine goes, "Well, it's mine." I go, "No, I found it."
Find it, find his
No.
keepers.
Yeah, losers creepers. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed, when they were on tour. They were, as I said, my second family,
Yeah.
and the boys were my brothers, and they took me to my first Brazilian concert, Sergio Mendes
Sergio Mendes. He's the only
in the
Brazilian
Brazil
one I know.
66. Yeah, and after that, I got into Brazilian music. So whatever the guys did, Maxie and I would follow.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
the
it was
Brazilian
fun.
music is so sensual and sexy and
I just love it. I just love it. I still to this day love Latin music and
yeah.
Brazilian music, and that's why I like Zumba.
Well, the Latin music is, I think my wife is Salvadorian, and they have the rhythm,
They do.
and you
I
see
have a
the
lot of
rhythm,
Salvadorian albums.
and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter how old or young they are. I mean, I have a
Mhm.
cousin that's 4 years old. She gets on the floor and she has a rhythm. I have
Yeah,
our aunt in their 70s, and of course they can't move as fast, but they have the rhythm.
they could still do it.
Yeah, and I get on the floor and they say, sit down.
No, I love it. I love to dance. I'm not a great dancer, but I'm a decent dancer.
Well, you said you were a dancer, right, in a previous
Yes.
life?
I tap danced and I did jazz.
Ah,
I did jazz hands.
jazz hands.
Jazz hands. I studied many years. I was with the Gold Diggers. Remember D. Martin's Gold
Yeah.
Diggers? Well, after D. Martin left the show, the girls were still going on tour and they needed a couple more girls. So my friends and I became part of the Gold Diggers
Gold
for a few
Diggers.
months. Mhm.
Yeah, that's you have to be crazy to be a dancer because back in the 60s I dated someone from the no, not Alan Nicholas. They were modern dance troupe.
Oh, cool.
And I mean she practiced like every waking hour and they didn't get paid for it. They only got paid when they were on tour.
Yeah, that's the only time you get paid.
And I think
Guys only get paid when they're on tour.
yeah. And her, every bone in her legs was sort of deformed because you have to get into these weird positions.
Yeah, I wasn't modern. I was totally jazz
Yes.
and tap. My knees are shot.
Well, Phil basically was old rock and roll.
Old rock and roll. Yeah,
Well, of course,
he did most of the writing.
yeah,
He wrote a lot of music for other artists too.
yeah. Well, originally I got involved with Phil probably about 6, 7 years ago, and we had a show that was on cable radio. It was called "It's Time to Stop the BS."
Oh, I remember that show.
Yeah, and it was like 3 other people, and then Phil eventually left because he got too bothered by it. He gets aggravated. His blood pressure goes up. He's such he really gets into it, heart and soul. Then we left the show, and when the pandemic came, I got into contact with him about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we started to do a show. I said, okay, Phil, let's not do politics. You get too involved with politics.
Tell me about it.
Let's do it on the tokens in your career in showbiz. And he started giving me a liturgy of what he's done, and my mouth was falling open. I mean, not only singing with the tokens, but writing music for other groups and producing it.
They took Phil and Mitch, and the guys were one of the first groups to produce other groups.
Yeah, and
they were geniuses.
Well, Phil told me, like, when he was a kid, even when like in his I guess in his before his teens, when he would listen to music, he would hear the different parts in the music. He could separate the different instruments and when they would come in. So in his mind, he was producing. Even back, he didn't know it was producing, but that's what producers do.
Yeah,
they take the different segments of the orchestra and combine them. He did that naturally.
Yeah, I'm so overwhelmed by this whole thing with Phil, because as I said, and just I feel horrible for Abby, and I'm very close with Abby, and she's one of the most amazing, for me, she's one of the most amazing people I know. And my heart goes out to her and her kids, my boys, my nephews.
Oh, yeah, well, I think just a month or two ago, they just celebrated the 55th anniversary.
Yes, I know.
And
but Phil was a character, because he would come to my house. And when we lived in the city, he'd come to our apartment at, say, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Don't tell us he's showing up. Says, I have a meeting. I'm meeting some people at your apartment. And Dennis goes, wait a minute. Did you call me? He goes, oh, I'm told him to meet me in my office, and your apartment's my office. So he comes in and they're talking politics. Now, my husband is a Republican at that time. Now he's independent.
Oh, okay.
He's independent now, because we know we all hate. But he was independent. He's independent now. But he and Phil would get into arguments all the time in our house, our apartment, and tell Dennis he's an idiot, he's wrong, and then turn around to him, oh, I'm running for city council. Would you sponsor me? Dennis looked at him and he goes, Phil, I'm leaving the house. I'm leaving your office. I'm going out for a while.
Before I have something that I would say that I would regret saying.
But my husband loved Phil. They loved it. Phil used to take my husband flying when we came to California.
Oh, yeah. He had a private plane, Phil. I think when I first met him, I think he had a plane. I don't know if he still has one now.
I don't know. I think he sold it, but he used to take Dennis up all the time in a plane. So he picked Dennis up. It was 100 and something degrees in LA that time. Picked him up. His air conditioning in the car was broken. So he rolled down the windows. They get to the plane, which is an old World War II fighter plane or something. No air conditioning. Dennis comes back. He's like drenched in sweat. But he said he had the best time.
Yeah.
He had the best time. He was we're both so sad. He was so sad about Phil. And also Mitch. He's another genius.
Yeah, Mitch, that was I got to work with Mitch also. Well, I didn't work with him. He came to the show when we did Time to Stop the BS. But he wasn't like a major part of it. Phil really was.
Well, Phil was a talker. He was a writer. He was the producer. And yes, the instruments, because of the way he thought with music, he taught me to separate the parts.
Yeah. But it,
So,
it was amazing because he told me like when he was in high school or something, and he wanted to get a job in the Catskills, and he had to teach himself how to play the piano.
mhm.
And he said, I don't think he can read music now, but he knows chords. I absolutely don't know what the hell he's talking about. But he said he can play it by chords.
Yeah, and he has the ear. He has
Yeah,
the ear
and
for
the
the
only thing I
music.
know about chords is if you want to be tied up, I'll get you a chord.
Now the chords are the basic arpeggio. He was good. And his old piano, my father was an electrician. So my father would do stuff in their house all the time for nothing. So I get old TVs and I got Phil's old piano, stand-up piano.
You still have it?
No, he sold it
Oh,
years and years
see,
ago.
if you knew back
It was
then
a,
what
I
you know
wish I
now,
know.
you'd probably save everything you have.
It was a player piano
Oh,
too.
play a piano.
Hmm. It was
What was
great. Never
amazing,
worked.
yeah, what was amazing about Phil also is how he jumped from one thing to another naturally, without studying, without being a student of, with never doing it before. How he,
Yeah.
it would happen to, he would be speaking to somebody. I think he met Robert Guillaume just on another thing, and Robert thought he was an agent, manager, but he wasn't. He told him he's not. But he said, "I'd like you to manage me,"
Yeah, I
and he
remember
became his
that.
manager.
Yeah.
And then he things about speaking to an executive, I think it was NBC or CBS, and he said, this is a good show, and the executive said, "Well, write something and give it to my production people," and he wrote it without any experience.
Well, Phil wrote a Broadway play, Matter of Time.
Yeah.
He wrote the null quotation, the null quotient. He's written novels. He's written Broadway plays, musicals. He's written TV movies.
And and you speak to him, he says, "Oh, like it's nothing. It just happened to me. I was at the right place at the right time." But he picked it up and he succeeded in doing it, which is,
Mhm.
a lot of people have situations arise where they, something good could happen, but they don't take advantage of it or they don't do it. Phil did it, and
Yes.
Phil was successful doing it. And he always poo-pooed himself. He said, "Oh, if I was a little more, proactive at doing it, I could have." And he poo-poos
Now
what
he
he did. He
did
said, "Oh,
it.
it's natural."
I remember at Neely's, no, it was Noah's wedding.
Noah
Robbie
is
Guillaume, Noah's Phil's son,
son.
one of the twins, Noah and Josh.
Is no
And at
Noah's
Noah's wedding,
yeah.
yeah, Noah's the
Then,
drummer for the Tokens.
right, but he's in the board of ed. He's one in the board of ed
Yes, he's
in
he's in the
Beverly
board of ed.
Hills,
Yes,
and the other one's a rabbi.
he's a rabbi. I'm so proud of my boys. Joshua and Noah are my. You have no idea how I fell over these kids, and Neely. Just all three of them are amazing kids because I love Phil, but that was Abby. Totally Abby.
Well, Abby must have been something in order to stay 55 years with Phil, because Phil was a dynamo. He's active, but he could be cantankerous. If he
Yeah.
didn't agree with you, he was cantankerous. He could argue your head off. It's lucky Phil and I agree on most of the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has no choice to agree with Abby. Otherwise, he'd been gone early
He'd been
than this.
gone.
He'd been gone.
It'd been a short marriage.
Yes, but they've been married a long time,
Yeah,
and
55 years is a hell of a long time.
And I used to go to their house when they lived. I used to babysit for the boys, Josh and Noah, over in Bensonhurst. They lived in Bensonhurst. And we used to be, when they weren't home, Maxie and I had food fights there. We had a lot of, got back and Abby was screaming.
You have the food all over the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The good old days.
The good old days. I still would do a food fight if I had, the right time. I would do it. I've thrown pies at people. just
Well, the
because I
closest I
wanted
got to
to.
throwing pies is I worked on the Soupy Sales show. And, and I used to buy the pies
Really?
for Soupy Sales. I
I
was the prop
love
man.
Soupy.
What?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I remember when I first got the shows, the only thing it didn't like menthol. It was shaving cream. And the big thing is
Oh,
you buy,
shaving.
yeah, it was shaving cream, but you couldn't buy mentholated because that irritated his eyes.
He was a nice one. I met him a couple of times, and this little quick thing about Soupy. He was performing in this club called Indigo, owned by the Gambinos. And I was managing, yes, and singing. I opened for acts and everything there. And Soupy's one request, he had a bucket of ice, had to be in his dressing room. So if he peed, he could pee into the bucket of ice to see the steam come up. I'll never forget that as long as I
Wow.
live on.
Did he pee in front of you or
No, 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 no,
no?
no, no. God forbid. Oh no, I'd punch him.
You give him a karate chop.
Yes. But Phil used to come into the Playboy Club to see me. He used to like to come in there. He got his free magazines when he was
Ooh.
in New York. Yes. And I used to give him special treatment there, make sure everyone knows he's my brother, treat
Ah.
him nice. He gave him all kinds of gifts and stuff from there.
As I say, he didn't realize what a icon he was. You know, I say I did Phil Margo, and I said, well, they may not know the name Phil Margo, but everybody knows the Tokens.
They know the Tokens. They know Robert Guillaume.
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying Noah's Wedding. Robert Guillaume, because of Phil, he sang from the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
it was
wow.
amazing. Yes. Oh my God. To this day, I'm still like.
Do we have a tape of that or a film?
I probably Noah has it from his wedding because it was. And of course, the guys got up to perform, and they did it also in Neely's wedding.
It was interesting. I had a good friend of mine, and I was telling her that about Phil passing, and she knew him right away. Why? He had I think it was a book on teaching children to read. I think him and Mitch.
Mitch, yes.
And she taught her children to read by that book.
It was a free program online that they did to teaching phonics.
Yeah.
And they did it for free. And they also, by the way, the Tokens also did School of Rock. What's that videos they used to have on there? The videos.
School of
was
Rock?
it School of Rock?
That was Jack Black.
No, not that. It was, they had back in the 60s, they would have teaching you different things. Oh God. Can't remember the name of it. It's called Getting Old.
Getting Old.
But they did a lot of educational things too for people. And Phil wrote a lot of that. But I think Phil kind of went down after Mitch passed.
Well, Phil would get depressed. He thought he was getting old. I mean, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if he'll go on tour again.
Oh God, we wanted him to go on tour.
Yeah. And I know, but he had a dispute with one of the original Tokens. It was Jay.
That was Jay, and originally Hank.
Yeah.
Medras.
But Hank passed,
we
right?
had a dispute. Hank passed about 20 some odd years ago.
And Jay still has another Token group, I think, going around touring.
It's Jay Siegel, formerly of the Tokens.
Oh.
Because Phil and Mitch were smart enough to own the name Tokens.
And I know we had on the show one time, we had Jay Leslie, who was a
Jay
trumpeter.
Leslie's a good friend.
Yeah, he was a trumpeter. And again, anybody that played with Phil loved him. I mean, they were good friends. And as I said,
but Jay never even, I'm surprised, we haven't heard from Jay, or maybe Abby has, because they were so close. They grew up together, and Jay is really a decent person.
No, I'm sure. Well, I saw something on Facebook with Jay saying, talking about Phil, saying, how he played 30 years with the guy who played the, what was it? Not the triangle,
Tambourine.
the tambourine next to him for 30 years, and how we loved him, and how now he's going to go and listen to the blues.
Yeah.
Because that's
Oh, that was Jay Leslie. That
Yeah.
was Jay Leslie, not Jay Siegel.
No, Jay Leslie
Said
and,
that.
and we were trying to get him to do the tokens. He would say, well, who remembers where could we play? I said, you probably could play in every college town in the country, because everybody knows the tokens. I don't think more than a week goes by where I don't hear The Lion Sleeps Tonight in some venue, commercial, a movie, something.
Yeah, even children know The Lion Sleeps Tonight because of
The Lion King.
Lion King. So it was the kids, when we came back with BT Puppy Records, and Maxine and I took over BT Puppy Records, The Lion King just came out. And I have to tell you, the sales and they got on Tracy Ullman, they were like hot. And they're still, you ask a kid, do you know The Lion Sleeps Tonight? They go, oh, Lion King song.
Yeah. Well, also some of the other songs he produced, which I never knew about, because his name wasn't attached to it, only as a producer, were some of the classics of rock and roll. And I'm working with Tony Orlando.
Tie a Yellow Ribbon.
Yeah,
and Knock Three Times.
Knock Three Times.
And he also produced Randy and the Rainbows, The Happenings, a lot of Carole King stuff, the Chiffons.
Yeah. And wait, aside from anything else, then he got into producing jingles for commercials.
Yes, he did.
I mean, that was, I don't think there's anything that he didn't do.
Pan Am Airlines, Silly 101 cigarettes back then. Silly Melanie Longo 101. And then there was Enemy Electric Organs. Here's a classic Phil. I was doing a trade show, modeling in a trade show. I just did a runway show at Fiorucci's in the city. And this famous hairdresser, Suga, Japanese little guy, he decided my hair had to be changed for this show. He cut it like a pixie, like really short. Phil came in because he was doing something with a commercial. He sees me and he goes, in the middle of this whole place, he goes, what the F? What did you do to your hair? He's screaming at me in the middle of the toy fair. It's like, Phil, this go after go back. But it was like he was like, the red hair, all I see is a little bit. I don't want to say, I don't see it. He called Maxine, he called Mitch, he called everyone. Let
everybody know.
I look like Twiggy. It was a Twiggy haircut.
Well, that wasn't bad.
I liked it.
You would even look good on it now if you did it.
You know what? I won't cut my hair short anymore because all the alta cockers, the old farts around, they all have that short, same haircut. So I don't want to look like them.
Yeah, but they don't have the face. I think you have the face and you still have the body. Well, actually, I've never seen your body, as a matter of fact.
Well,
one day we'll have to meet.
Definitely. Well, I will be out in California. You're welcome to come and visit us here in the East Coast, you and your wife.
Where do you live? Connecticut?
I live in New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Listen, I never went to New Jersey when I lived in New York.
I live on a golf course.
No. The only time I went to Jersey is when I would go to the Catskills.
Oh, so you have to go through.
Yeah, I had to go through the George Washington Bridge, and I forget where it was.
And
then get to the New York State Freeway. Yeah, to the freeway. Before the freeway, I think we take Route 17.
Route 17. Back then it was the old 17.
The old 17.
Yes, you go past the Apple, that big Apple diner.
The Orsic brothers, I think, or something. It was something brothers.
Yes.
That own the
Big Apple. The Apple.
Yeah, the Big Apple. Yeah, that's where you. That was like the halfway point. I don't know if it's a halfway point, but that's where you went to rest. It's if you lived in.
That's where you went. Yes, you went there to go to the bathroom, get apples, and then get back in the car and go.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Brooklyn, and I think it was like a 2.5 hour trip or something, which was nothing. But then it was
Mhm.
something, because who went in the car? Who went to
I didn't
two?
get my license till I was 31 years old.
Oh, no, I had a license at the 19, living in Brooklyn, you needed a car.
See, I never used a car in Brooklyn. My parents had one, but I never, because I took the subway, I took the train, I took the bus. I walked, I took my
Yeah,
bicycle.
yeah, but your dates picked you up.
They all picked me up.
Right, my dates I had to pick up. And most of the dates that I went on, when I was a teenager in my early 20s, lived in Long Island.
Long
So Long
Island.
Island, so I take the Belt Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
You know why it's called Belt
No, I
Parkway?
used, because there's a belt around
It's a
Brooklyn and
belt, it's a
Queens.
right, and they built that, I think, during World War II. So
Mm-hmm.
the troops could come if people invaded Manhattan or Brooklyn.
I lived, Maxine and I used, she lived basically off the Bell Parkway.
Mm.
And we used to go to a place, the hill down there called Suey or Suicide Hill. And you slide, you go on your sled and you better turn quickly, otherwise you go into traffic.
Do you ever get into traffic?
No,
Yeah.
but our parents said never go there,
Yeah.
and we never told them.
But anyway, that's the end of our show.
Well,
Can you
God
believe it?
rest Phil, and
I mean, it's apropos of, the lion roars and what I say, which I did on my Facebook. The lion's not roaring. The lion is sleeping tonight.
yes, he is. Thank
And
you.
I hope, hopefully he's at peace. Well, maybe not Phil at peace. The word at peace and Phil Margo do not go together. You know what I mean?
True, true.
He
He's
should
up
be
there making trouble
right.
right now.
Right. So someone is going to the powers that be and said, "Why the hell did we get this guy here? It was so quiet before him."
I wanted
But,
to have some funny things, but I'm
yeah.
still so sad.
Well, we'll have time. Hopefully, Maxine will be back next week, and we'll continue
Yeah.
the show. And I know we're going to say a lot more about Phil, because she also has some very
Well,
heartfelt.
because she was,
Well, no,
well,
both
that
of you are
was
the
her
sisters. Yeah.
brother. Yeah, but
And
Maxine, grew up with him more.
yeah, it's
He was,
and again, as I say, for him, I don't know how happy he would have been if he was incapacitated and survived and he couldn't do anything. That's because that's not the
no,
Phil I know.
no,
So
that's not the Phil I know
yeah,
either.
it's tragic for us who knew him and loved him. That his spirit is always there, because I see pictures of him where I go some of the old shows and I feel it.
Hmm.
There's an emotional feeling that I see him and I get that energy, and it's surreal, because again, I didn't grow up with him and I didn't know him till maybe for the last 15 years.
Right.
And
But Phil
yeah,
is an amazing man.
yeah.
My heart is broken.
As I say, the lion is finally at rest.
Yes, and there's the end of the tokens
Yeah.
there, but they will live on in his music.
Oh, they'll live on. I mean, they're living on now. As I say, I don't think there is a week that goes by which I don't hear, the tokens and the lion sleeps tonight in some venue. But anyway, my dear.
Yes, thank you for being on with me today. And Maxine, we send you our love, and
Yeah,
Abby and all three kids
and the kids
and
and
grandkids.
yeah, since I'm in LA, I'll probably go over to the when they're sitting shiver. I think it's at I forget whose house. She's supposed to send me the information.
And
But anyway, peace be with you, and maybe we
okay,
speak in better occasions.
we're-
I'll see you next week. Bye, and you're freezing.
Take
Bye.
care. See you next week. Shalom.
Shalom.
Peace.